Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhare Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanang Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtapraisha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutamā Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, The Science of God, Chapter 10, Prahlad, the best among the exalted devotees. We'll read from text 60 up until 64. Sidamritara Sasprishta Vajra Sara Mahojasaha Utasturmega Dalana Vaidyuta Iva Vanayaha. When the dead bodies of the demons came in touch with the nectar, their bodies became invincible to thunderbolts. Endowed with great strength, they got up like lightning penetrating clouds. Vilokya Bhagna Sankalpam Vimanaskam Vrishadvajam Dadayam Bhagavan Vishnus Tatropayam Akalpayat. Seeing Lord Shiva very much aggrieved and disappointed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, considered how to stop this nuisance created by Maya Danava. Vatshas Chasitada Brahma Swayam Vishnurayam Hi Gauhu Pravishya Tripuram Kale Rasa Kupam Ritam Papau. Then Lord Brahma became a calf and Lord Vishnu a cow, and at noon they entered the residences and drank all the nectar in the well. Te surahyapi pashyanto nana shedan vimohitaha tadvigaya mahayogi rasapalan nidam jagao smayam vishoka shokartan smarandaiva gatim chatam. The demons could see the calf and cow, but because of the illusion created by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demons could not forbid them. The great mystic, Mayadanava, became aware that the calf and cow were drinking the nectar, and he could understand this to be the unseen power of providence. Thus, he spoke to the demons, who were grievously lamenting. Just excuse me for a moment. Devo suro naronyo va neshvaro stiha kaschana atmano nyasya vadishtam daivena pohitum dvayoho. Devo suro naronyo va neshvaro stiha kaschana atmano nyasya vadishtam daivena pohitum dvayoho. Would anyone like to try to read the verse?
I would like to try to read the verse.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Evo soro naro nyo va neshvaro sti hakashyana atmano nyasyava dishtam daivena pohitum dhyayoho.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else? Devaha, the demigods, Asuraha, the demons, Naraha, humans, Anyaha, or anyone else, va either, na not Ishvaraha, the supreme controller, asti is iha in this world, kaschana anyone, atmanaha one's own, anyasya another's, va either, dishtam destiny, daivena which is given by the Supreme Lord, apohitum to undo, dvayoho of both of them. Translation. Mayadanava said, what has been destined by the Supreme Lord for oneself, for others, or for both oneself and others cannot be undone anywhere or by anyone, whether one be a demigod, a demon, a human being, or anyone else. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Supreme Lord is one, Krishna, the Vishnu Tattva. Krishna expands himself into Vishnu Tattva personal expansions. Swangsha, who control everything. Mayadanava said, however I plan, you plan, or both of us plan, the Lord has planned what is to happen. No one's plan will be successful without his sanction. End quote. We may make our own various plans, but unless they are sanctioned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, they will never be successful. Hundreds and millions of plans are made by all kinds of living entities, but without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, they are futile. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanjana-shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Devo suro naronyo va, neshvaro stiha kaschana, atmanonyasya vadishtam, daivena pohitum dvayoho. Mayadanava said, what has been destined by the Supreme Lord for oneself, for others, or for both oneself and others, cannot be undone anywhere or by anyone, whether one be a demigod, a demon, a human being, or anyone else. So this is the super excellence of Bhagavatam, that demons can speak the conclusion of the Vedas, or at least the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the 10 subject matters of the Srimad Bhagavatam is to take shelter of the Samambonam, to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And here, Mayadanava is expressing defeat, despite his mystic power, his various technological, what he put together, the technology that he actually put together was impressive. This happened a very long time ago, and even though the present leaders of our human civilization say that we're the most technologically advanced in the history of the entire human race on this earth planet, but this kind of technology is something straight out of science fiction, what he actually put together, that he created a pool of nectar and it actually revived the demons. So many leaders would like actually this kind of technology. We know, for example, some leaders and rich business people, their bodies are still they're frozen. One famous is Walt Disney, actually. He got his body frozen. And he has faith, yes, he has faith that a Maya Danava will appear in humans, in our human society, and will raise them from the dead. Yes, so that's his faith. Anyway, in any case, so this kind of technology is quite amazing. But still, despite such mystic power, despite reviving all the demons from defeat, reviving them from death, uh, they couldn't they couldn't actually prevent a seemingly small act, which was could have just got a stick and then just chase the cow and the calf away from the pool. They were all bewildered. They were watching it, you know. The cow and the calf is just ruining everything. Because the entire military operation was based on this pool. This is their fallback plan. Is that okay? And using this pool and the strength that they were getting from this pool, they were able to attack Svargaloka, the heavenly planets again, and put the demigods into stress. So that's how impressive what Mahadanava put together. And yet he's admitting that, yes, we made all these big plans. In fact, it looked like we were about to win again, but none of us could just grab a stick and just chase these cows away. We just had to look on. Yeah. Uh, so such is the bewildering potency of Vishnu Maya. That's what Maya is admitting defeat. He is saying the supreme power is this Vishnu Maya. The Lord is, if he doesn't sanction it, then whatever plans we can make. So we could get up from this defeat again, from this cow and calf who drank up all the nectar, and launch another assault. We'll be defeated again. And the person who's actually going to conquer them is Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva in this pastime got the famous name Tripurari, the one who defeated these three cities, flying cities or residences that Mayadanava constructed, and they were invisible. And so Tripurari Shiva is getting this name, or he got this name because of the help of Vishnu, because Lord Vishnu sanctioned it, that, okay, we need to actually, this is a nuisance in the order of how things are meant to be governed and managed in the universe. So the deity of the maintenance of this universe and also all other universes, which is Lord Vishnu, he didn't sanction this kind of disturbance. And so he intervened. And so his intervention is the actual, that's what causes the results. He sanctioned, in other words. That's actually what is the supreme factor in all action. So here Prabhupada in the purport is explaining that how Vishnu is actually sanctioning everything. He's sanctioning everything through Swangsha. So Vishnu, Tattva, personal expansions. These are Swangsha expansions. He also has separated expansions, which are also called Vivinangshas. So this is how the Lord is actually sanctioning everything through these Swangsha expansions. And one of these Swangsha expansions was this cow and calf. And they were watching it, and they couldn't do anything about it. And so Mayadanava is admitting that defeat. So shutting down our plan-making factory. So this is one of the canonical verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. So my Guru Maharaj, he likes to quote Prabhupada's explanation of this verse, and Prabhupada's explanation is, shut down your plan-making factory and just surrender unto Krishna. So let us try to educate our intelligence why it is that we should actually do this. So Mayadanava, in this pastime, this educates our intelligence, is that you had Yes. So despite any kind of technological arrangement. So now in this case, I guess in the last month or so, SpaceX, it had its initial public offering, so it went public and it broke records, right? And their offering to society is that yes, we can actually colonize Mars. So that's the idea that people, investors were sold on, and that's what they've invested their faith in. So it's a great plan how humans are actually going to colonize another planet. And the idea is that if we colonize another planet and start from scratch with the technology that we have, problems such as global warming, uh, fighting between nations caused by religions, different creeds, different ethnicities. That won't be there. Poverty won't be there. All these things that are seen as a nuisance in society, uh, like a disease, a social disease. It can all be removed by just starting from scratch. Yeah. But again, this is a pie in the sky. It'll never happen because the consciousness, the cause that actually perpetuates these problems is the consciousness of the leaders. And so if they're taking it to Mars, then obviously these problems would manifest. But we know from the Srimad Bhagavatam, each planet has a deity, and every planet they have defenses. So each planet has a society. There's people living there. Um, Living entities are living there, and each planet can defend itself from invasion. And so, yeah, it's not likely to actually occur. So this kind of shutting down of the plan making factories to so this pastime actually educates our intelligence, right? So let's go to another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So another famous verse, Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So this is also part of Krishna's offer, is that it's actually the incentive of shutting down your plan-making factory is the incentive is escape the three modes of material nature. So going to other planets, right, colonizing other planets, the appeal is we demonstrate our advancement by escaping Earth's gravity. So there is like a system that basically grades the advancement of a civilization based on how far they can actually, whether they can actually escape Earth's gravity. But again, this kind of system is flawed, right? Um, grading the advancement of a society based on how much they've actually escaped the laws of nature, particularly gravity, and for interstellar travel and all this. It's flawed. So Krishna says the real gravity is not physical gravity. The thing that's actually pulling the living entity and keeping them grounded within the universe is the three modes of material nature. So the Vedas also recognize this, and they tried to organize progressive human society around the goal of moksha. So there's karma, artha, dharma, and moksha. So the idea is that you become religious so that you can get artha. So people are attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas for getting artha, right? So we'll follow dharma so that we can get artha. And then once we are frustrated with trying to enjoy, trying to increase our material happiness and then decrease our misery, once we get frustrated in this attempt, then we look for moksha, right? So you become religious so that you can get artha for the purposes of karma. So become religious to get to advance economically so that you can enjoy lustly desires. But what accompanies lustly desires is frustration. So anger, bewilderment, just loss even of your artha. So once you get frustrated by this, then you pursue moksha or liberation. And this moksha, the idea with this moksha is that you target heavenly planets. And when you target heavenly planets, these miseries that you're experiencing in frustrated love, frustrated lusty desires, having children that, like, okay, you can have a good wife or a good husband, but then you don't have a good child. Or you see other couples, they have good wife, good husband, and a good child, but they don't have any money. Okay. So if you go to the heavenly planets, the baselines that everybody is born middle class or higher, and they don't have to experience these miseries. But what are the demigods experiencing right now in this pastime? Is they're experiencing pending colonization from the demons. So the constant anxiety in the heavenly planets is being colonized by another race, which is the Asuras. And the Asuras, when they manage planets, they basically create slave colonies. That's what they do. They enslave everybody. So when you hear about the reign of Hiranyakashipu, how the great leaders of the demigods, Indra, they were offering, they were basically subservient to Indra, and at a flick of Hiranyakashipu's eyebrows, they would just tremble. And he was just performing all these functions in the universe alone, single-handedly, with his own technological arrangements and mystic power. He didn't need them, right? And so they were dependent on him. And so he just ruled with an iron fist. And everybody was just afraid. Yeah, so it was terror for those who didn't accept Hiranyakashipu as the supreme deity of the universe, because he even outlawed the worship of Vishnu, his enemy. So this is what the Asuras do. And they're very clever. They do it in different ways. But on this planet, we're being enslaved by the fear of scarcity of money. So the money system, it creates an illusion of scarcity, that the Lord hasn't done enough for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending for the humans, right? The other living entities, they don't worry about this. Their subsistence is managed. But the humans, somehow, not enough has been done. And when you live in a city, the construction of a city, everybody stacked up in buildings, living on one another, living on top of one another. The appeal is that, yes, for the conveniences, I have access to convenience, everything. I don't have to worry about producing food. I can just buy food. But the price that they pay is this anxiety and bad air, access to, just clean air, being able to actually have a good night's sleep. The earth is polluted with EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, Wi-Fi just everywhere. Lights, so even if you get like a blackout curtain, still the ether is just contaminated. And so it's very difficult to get a good night's rest. And then eating, it's like people don't even know that it's, or at least they know, they have the idea, but they can't mold their life around high quality eating. So uh, getting into a committed relationship and then dividing the cooking so that you can just like cook things from scratch. People see that as an inconvenience. No, I'll just buy that from a wrapper. So this is the kind of society that the demons construct. They create an idea, uh, they create the illusion of scarcity. And so in this way, people get enslaved by that system. So, so this moksha that one targets, even for the heavenly planets, um, you're gonna experience fear. You're going to actually experience anxiety. So the best thing is, in fact, to just surrender to the Lord. So even with the progressive, even in a progressive human society, that is structured according to artha, dharma, moksha, and karma. So where everything, all these um, karma and artha are regulated by dharma, and then you're targeting moksha. Krishna even says, yeah, even that is problematic. So the moksha you should be targeting is just actually sarva dharma, to actually just surrender to the Supreme Lord. So let's see. Let's continue to educate our intelligence. So how to actually surrender to Krishna is, or at least the reason for surrendering to Krishna is very nicely described in the 18th chapter, right? So Krishna, he describes to Arjuna that there's 5 factors of action. The place of action, which is the body, the performer, which is me and you, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. Mayadanava is saying the supreme factor is the supersoul. So if the supersoul doesn't sanction it, then you won't actually get the result that you as a performer are targeting. In this case, they were targeting another assault on the demigods, but they were bewildered by the supersoul. So through his Swangsha expansion, this Vishnu, through his Swangsha expansion of the supersoul in the heart of every living entity, the demons, they were bewildered. Again, they couldn't just grab a stick. I'm sure there were many sticks around, but they just couldn't chase away these 2 cows. Right? So this factor of action is the supreme one. So when Krishna says, Sarva-dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja, me, surrender to Krishna, to the person Krishna. So not to the system, because this idea of the system, moksha is, it's almost separated from the Lord. Is that, okay, if I just follow these rules, if I just follow the yoga system, if I'm just pious enough, then ultimately I'll get liberation, right? But what you get is actually a repeated cycle of birth and death. Or at the very best, if you're educated, you may attain to the Brahma Jyoti. But the real liberation is really to have the spirit soul liberated from the false ego. So the cause, the ultimate cause of one's bondage is this idea that I'm actually separated from the Supreme Lord. So even the idea of moksha, you have to attach it to the Supreme Person. So if you're liberated, then where are you? So there's systems like Buddhism, which has this idea of moksha, and it's impersonal. So the real liberation is the one that is attached to the person Krishna, and that's what he's saying in 1866 of this chapter. So I like His Holiness Hridayananda Maharaj's book, Comprehensive Guide to the Bhagavad Gita, with transliterations. And he's got a section in it where he's given the translation of the entire chapter, and just word for word, but like in a coherent way. Almost simulating the experience of how you would hear, how Arjuna would hear it, how Arjuna heard it, right? So we'll read just a little from chapter 18. Arjuna said, O great armed slayer of Keshi, O Rishikesh, I wish to know separately the truth about renouncing and letting go. The Lord said, the wise know renouncing as putting aside selfish actions. The clear-sighted call letting go, the letting go of all action fruits. Some sages claim that action is flawed and to be let go. Others claim that acts of sacrifice, charity, and austerity are not to be let go. Hear my conclusion about letting go, best of Bharatas. 3 ways of letting go are described, O man tiger. One must not let go of sacrifice, charity, and austerity. These are to be done. Sacrifice, charity, and austerity purify even sages. Thus one should indeed perform these actions, letting go of attachment and fruits. This is my certain and final view, Partha. Renouncing prescribed action is not right. Letting go due to confusion is declared to be in darkness. One would let go of duty, fearing bodily discomfort, thinking it miserable, has merely let go in passion and cannot gain the fruit of letting go. When one does prescribe duty, Arjuna, thinking only it is to be done, and abandons attachment and fruit, that letting go is deemed in goodness. So this is the transliteration of verses 1 through 9 in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's about letting go. And ultimately, Krishna then, he says, then let go of just the entire factory of making plans. And that's what Maya Danava is saying here. So there's a nice, so we all know Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, a great commentator on the Bhagavad Gita. And he wrote a nice article that I'd like to read about this verse, 1866. It's entitled, From Thank God to Thank You, God. During one of my flights on my last tour of Australia, I found myself in the middle seat. As the departure time drew near, neither the aisle seat nor the window seat beside me had been occupied. I asked the flight attendant whether I could shift to one of them, but was told that both seats were occupied and the passengers were on their way. Just before departure, 2 middle-aged Australian women hurried in, one after another, and took the 2 seats beside me. The lady by the window quickly called a relative and with obvious relief exclaimed, "Thank God, I managed to catch the flight. I'll be there in about 3 hours." A few moments later, the lady in the aisle seat, who seemed quieter and more reserved, softly said into a phone, "Thank you, God, for helping me catch this flight." Hearing those 2 phrases in such quick succession got me thinking about how much difference that one extra word, you, can make. In saying thank God, we focus primarily on what has happened. Some danger has been avoided, some problem has been solved, or something favorable has occurred. We acknowledge God but mainly as the distant source of the providence behind the event. In saying, thank you, God, we shift our focus from what has happened to the one who made it happen. In expressing our gratitude, we are not merely acknowledging providence, we are directly expressing our gratitude to a person. The linguistic difference is small. The relational difference is immense. As I dwelt on that thought further, my mind went to another expression that I'd seen just the previous day. Thank God it's Friday, commonly abbreviated as TGIF. When people use that phrase, their focus is almost never on God at all. It is almost entirely on the relief that the working week has ended and the weekend has begun. God has become little more than part of an idiomatic expression. As I continued reflecting on this difference, my thought went to the Bhagavad Gita. There too, a small difference in reference dramatically changes the relational impact. In its concluding chapter, the Bhagavad Gita calls for surrender twice. First, in 1862, it refers to the divine in third person. Quote, surrender unto him, end quote. A few verses later in 1866, the same call is repeated, but now the divine is referred to in the first person. Krishna tells Arjuna, quote, surrender unto me, end quote. The first sounds like a formal instruction. The second sounds like a deeply personal invitation. It struck me that just as the way Krishna refers to himself changes how we experience his words, the way we refer to him also changes how we experience our own relationship with him. As I quietly repeated to myself the expression, thank you, God, trying to taste it more deeply, I was reminded of the opening line of Srila Prabhupada's Narkina Bhagavad Dharma prayers. Quote, such immense mercy have you shown, O Krishna, upon the soul fallen and forlorn. Unquote. Prabhupada's words are much sweeter and a deeper expression of the devotional mood contained within the simple words, thank you, God. Since that flight, I've tried to refine my own expression of gratitude. Whenever something works out well, rather than simply saying, thank God, I try to pause and say, thank you, God. I pray that through that small change in expression, I may move beyond merely acknowledging the providence to expressing gratitude to a person. May I gradually realize, as Srila Prabhupada did, that the divine is not merely a distant arranger of favorable circumstances, but a living, loving companion drawing me toward himself through every event of life, even through two simple phrases overheard on a flight. So this is our mood, dear devotees, and this is the difference between the Suras and the Asuras. So while my Danava's acknowledgement that Vishnu is he is actually the supreme factor in any kind of arrangement, in any kind of plan that we make, it's distant. It's acknowledging him as a providential arrangement. And the demons see Vishnu in that way, that let's just find a favorable time to attack the demigods, right? So when Vishnu deems it, when the universe is in passion and ignorance, according to Vishnu's system, Vishnu won't stop us. So that's the extent of their surrender, is they still persist in going against Vishnu and the Supreme Lord. Whereas for the Suras, the devotees of the Lord, and the demigods are part of that, is a direct acknowledgement and dependency on the Lord. So for the demigods, they're still caught up in the opulence, the power, the facilities. So they're bewildered by that. But here on this earth planet, we have the good fortune that, yes, we are in the midst of a demonic society. There's really nothing. There's nothing nice to watch. Nothing. It's just really like if you think about it aspirationally, on this Earth planet, there's just nothing except, uh, as Prabhupada put it, Bhavananda. Yes. So when he was naming one of his famous disciples who was the early managers of um, the Mayapur project, um, the bliss of this mature world. And so Bhavananda Prabhu was very bewildered as how can there be bliss in this mature world? Because he had this understanding there's nothing. And the only bliss is to actually give Krishna consciousness to others, get it yourself and give it to others. Right. And internally, it's this bliss that we thank the Supreme Lord directly. So after we've let go of our plan making factory, then the positive is to actually see the direct hand of Radha Damodar in our life. So um, again, it's not just providential, just seeing Krishna in the background. It's the form of Damodar, 5-year-old bound up at the belly. He is the Lord of our lives, and we see his hand. And so offering prayers every day to Radha Damodar is our function. And then that way we see how different, how he's actually acting personally, how he's actually acting in our lives. Yes. So today on this, I think it is an auspicious day. It's on the calendar. It's, the disappearance of Shivananda Saint, Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, and it's also the day of Jagannath Puri Ratha Yatra. So let us pray, dear devotees, today that we can thank Krishna directly through his Swansha expansion um, in the form of his deity, his Archa Vigraha deity, in the form of Radha Damodar, that we can always be conscious and see how the Lord is actually acting in our lives. And whatever plan we make it towards what Krishna says we should make it towards, right? And Krishna says we should make it towards things that purify the heart, austerity, penance, knowledge, right? So we don't make plans towards sense gratification, but rather we make plans towards improving our bhakti and keeping us situated in the mode of goodness. And in this way, we can let go in the mode of goodness so that we can be propelled to the Vishuddha Sattva and always Vishuddha Sattva platform and always be absorbed in the loving pastimes of Radha Damodar. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions, reflections, or contentions? Dinapalika.
Hare Krishna. Um, I liked your point about that the money system causes like or maybe is meant for creating like a scarcity mentality. And we can see it's so prevalent in modern society. But I was just thinking, I can't remember if this is true or I made it up in my head, but I swear I heard something that like in Vedic times, the Vaishyas dealt with money, but that it just wasn't so prevalent in society, or maybe the other castes didn't really deal with it so much. And then I was thinking about reading, Ramayan, or I mean, even I guess less so in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it was 500 years ago only. But it seems like a lot of the gifts, that were given or exchanged was a lot more like food and I mean, even Nanda Maharaj paid his taxes and milk products. And then reading Ramayana, like the kings treasury was a lot of the gifts from the citizens was like jewelry, and then yeah, gifts to the brahmanas, like a lot of times they're being fed or given cloth or something. So it seems like there was less emphasis on money, or maybe just that money was in the form of jewels or something. So I was just wondering if you can explain that more or just elaborate on that.
So is your question about whether money is an invention, a pure invention of the demons, or whether it's also part and parcel of an ashram? Is that your question?
Well, yeah, I think it's there in Varnashram, but are we like does modern society put an undue emphasis on it? Like, is the Vedic system less geared toward like everything just being in the form of money in the way that we think of it? Or do I have a misconception of that?
Mm. Yeah, your understanding is correct. So where it became demoniac was when money wasn't backed up by any natural resources. And even President Eisenhower mentioned this, is that once the US dollar moved away from the gold standard, then yeah, basically the hell was unleashed on the earth. So there's one economist who describes, like, I think it's about maybe a 5 hour seminar on YouTube. He talks about the history of money in the last 500 years. It's very interesting. But from your reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that, yeah, there's really the economy is managed by the Kshatriyas. They set the law, and you don't have a society where they are printing money and it's backed up purely by the military. So like the US dollar now, it's purely backed up by the military. So the US, they can just willy-nilly continue to print money and somehow it stays stable, right? So the currency exchange, their currency exchange stays stable. It doesn't devalue. But other bigger nations are recognizing this, like Russia and China, and that's why they want to move away from the US dollar. But in other countries, if you just continue printing money as a government, it deflates because you can't you don't have a threat. So you can't impose sanctions and all this, you know. So yeah, in Vedic times, the economy was, from what we can understand, it was donations. Each ashram produced something, and it was moving and the way our Guru Maharaj puts it is that the economy was all about giving. So the Brahmanas, intellectual class, they would give knowledge, right? So they produced knowledge. They produced not at least they produced the transfer of knowledge. So they would create a system on transferring knowledge and maintaining it in high integrity. And so the reciprocation, so they would give it for free. And so the reciprocation would be charity. And then they will only keep what they needed, right? And then the Kshatriyas take advantage of that knowledge. So everybody else takes advantage of that knowledge, and that knowledge can help you develop mystic power. It can help you develop strength, military strength. You can do all sorts of things. That knowledge also, you can be a farmer. You can become an artisan. So even when you read about Nanda Maharaj, I think he was doing the name-giving ceremony of Krishna and how he gave in charity to everybody, to the artisans who are regarded as Shudras. They were putting on, some of them were musicians, some of them were just chanting the Vedic prayers and mantras. So everybody got something. And the huge wealth that Nanda Maharaj had, it's based on taking advantage of that knowledge. And so they would produce an excess because everything is based on knowledge. Right? So if you follow Krishna's system, there's no scarcity. And Krishna's system is knowledge. Krishna describes how to actually take advantage of the different resources. And so everybody, in fact, was in excess. And so when you hear about money, it being exchanged, they would generally give like jewels and gifts. But the Vaishyas, when they would use the money, it was backed up by the resources, stocks of grains, jewels, etc. But again, yeah, they weren't trading with money purely. They were trading with what my ashram, what my varna can actually produce. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I'm just wondering if anyway, maybe this is a bit too specific, but so did Shudras get paid with money, like old coins, or were they maintained in some other way? Like they
With
were just
gifts,
given.
clothes, yeah, they were
Well,
given the
like
necessities.
I was even thinking of how the government, if somebody's poor nowadays, the government will provide housing, for example. So I was just thinking it does exist still that like the government, a, I mean, a loving government, I don't know if you could call our government that, but that they would maintain, they could see that somebody's working and then they maintain that person not by directly giving them money, but by giving them the resources to live. Because we hear that, like Shudra might have, I mean, in the Bhagavatam, it says they might have the propensity to, if they just get money, they might misuse it for sense gratification.
Yeah, so an economic system based on giving, in one sense, one could say that it's a big welfare state, right? But the welfare state, it really de-emphasizes Varna and what people are actually, it de-emphasizes what each person's actually supposed to do. So in the present welfare state, just by being in need, that's your Varna. To qualify for Section 8 housing, hey, that's my Varna. I'm poor. I was born poor. So therefore, and the people stay that way, right? But with welfare state, welfare system in Vedic times, no. It was the basis of it, of you getting, was what you could give. It wasn't you being in need, but it was that you are actually performing your duty honestly and you are giving to society. And so people, all the higher classes, the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, they would give because, yes, oh my God, this is such a good musician, who's just chanting the Vedic hymn so nicely. It's such an inspirational performance they would put on. Everybody would just be inspired to give and give. And then there were people who were really poor. It's not like poverty wasn't there. The famous poor Brahmana is Sudama Vipra, who went to Krishna. He was very, very poor, so much so that, the veins were like showing, he was trembling, very, very poor. So it's not that everybody was just like free of scarcity. There was. But in Sudama Vipra's case, we understand that it's just that's what he chose. That's what he was inclined to. And therefore, Krishna imposed wealth greater than Indra on him because he was attached to being poor. So Krishna's like, no, you're too attached to being poor. So it's example in the Shastra. But the system did work. And what we are being the propaganda right now is that the last 5,000 years has been, or let me say, since the abolishment of monarchy, which was precipitated by the French Revolution, 1793, 1790s or so. That's when man got liberated from the Dark Ages, and now they are now mankind is progressing further and further. It's all nonsense. That monarchy monarchy in Kali Yuga, it was being abused. And Yeah, the leaders are just very degraded. But when it's done properly, monarchy, it's backed up by Varnashram. Monarchy is not just a system on its own that, hey, we just need to have a king. No, we need to have Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, qualified Brahmanas, who will advise the king. And then those Kshatriyas then rule over the Vaishyas properly. They don't like abuse them like the feudal system, where these monarchies, these kings, they had great tracts of land, and then people were just they were renting out farms to farmers, but basically these farmers were just like workers. Yeah, so that's not that's not how Varnashram is actually supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah, Tarka Prabhu can speak more about this. But I'm gonna have to sign off because I've got to go to work. Are there any other questions or comments? Maybe Tarka Prabhu, you can pick up this question about money and if whether it's mutually exclusive or inclusive in Varnashram.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tarka Prabhu?
Yes.
Could you take us home with regards to this question about money and its place in Varnashram?
Well, the we understand from Srimad Bhagavatam's discussion of Maharaj Parikshit's encounter with the personality of Kali that the hoarding of gold is one of the places, a refuge for the personality of Kali. So something to be avoided. But within the Vedic system, there was exchange of all different types of currency. The currency, in many cases, was actual goods or services. So a system of barter. Actual grains, for example, textiles, silk or cotton, minerals, including gold and other precious items. All kinds of goods were exchanged in essentially a system of barter. Paper money was not a thing. That's a cheating process. Paper currency has no real value. It's just a facility to cheat. But in the Vedic system, currency had intrinsically real value, and so that automatically prevents abuses and inflation. Srila Prabhupada explains. Anyway, and with regards to the payment of Shudras, paying Shudras is like part of the definition of a Shudra, that they respond well to working in a situation in which they receive payment at the end of the week or whatever. Those who want to work in exchange for payment, that's the definition of it. One definition of a Shudra. Even a Brahmin, if a Brahmin accepts payment, he becomes a Shudra. the Vaishyas are self-employed. They don't accept payment exactly. The Brahmins don't accept payment. They can accept donations. The Kshatriyas are authorized to tax. And so modern civilization is Shudra civilization. Everything revolves around, earning salary. People are trained from youth to understand the principle and trained in some particular skill, Shudra skill, so they can work in exchange for some sort of payment, paper currency, a check, or digital currency, which similarly has no real value, worth even less than paper. It's just digits in the ether. But Shudra society, the whole society pretty much from top to bottom, predominated by Shudras. Brahmana is extremely rare. Kshatriyas are gone. There are no real Kshatriyas. Vaishyas, there are still a good number of Vaishyas, but they are generally corrupted. So I don't know if I've answered the question. I don't know if there are any more questions, but I would like to thank you for your class. Always a pleasure to hear. We started off with a bang, the prospect of colonizing another planet. We'll see what happens. I don't know if Srila Prabhupada was quite skeptical of such things. He explained that, as you mentioned, that that every planet is inhabited, and that part of the reason that that there are individual planets separated by a vast moat of space is precisely because by Krishna's arrangement or Brahma's arrangement, there's a natural system of segregation that different classes of living beings are segregated in various ways by either within a particular planet there are natural boundaries, oceans, rivers, mountains that separate people from one another. Those may be breached in various ways, but breaching the moat that surrounds planets is pretty tough. You got to cross a vast ocean of space. And even if you manage to do that, Srila Prabhupada said there are still defenses. The demigods, I remember one discussion in which was mentioned that even if somehow or other you were to forcibly enter a heavenly planet, you might not necessarily be privileged to see the inhabitants, because the demigods also possess all kinds of mystic opulences, and they may visit the earth and you won't necessarily see them. They can even be invisible to one another. There are lots of accounts in Shastra. So you may go somewhere and conclude that the planet is desolate, because you haven't gone through the proper process of immigration. But there is a process of immigration. There is a I don't know. I guess I'll go there. There is an increasingly popular movement for opening borders, um, destroying boundaries, allowing free movement of people from one area to another unrestrictedly, and there is also um, there are instances in which Srila Prabhupada complained about the restrictive immigration policies of certain countries, which made it difficult for him to preach, to move um, from one country to another in some cases. Lots of red tape, time lost, applying for visas and such, and waiting for officials to do their thing. So Srila Prabhupada didn't like the fact that he, as a sadhu with an important mission for the benefit of the world, was restricted in his movement. But we should not necessarily conclude from that therefore there should be no controls on human movement, because the example that we find throughout the universe is that powers that be have placed similar restrictions on the movement of people. Krishna himself surrounded his city with a wall and a moat. There were gates that were controlled by armed guards, and not just anyone could wander into Dwarka. And similarly, every palace had its compound walls and guards. Brahma instituted a system, as I say, the ocean of space between the planets, natural boundaries within planets. It's intentional. It's not just happenstance. The natural boundaries on Earth were placed there intentionally, and human beings were from the beginning of human population on Earth. They were segregated. There are different classes of human beings, and they each occupied their own region, separated by natural boundaries. Now, with modern technology, the father of which, incidentally, is Maya Dunava. With modern technology, we can breach those boundaries easily, at least on the Earth, and who knows, perhaps such technology will enable us to somehow breach some of the larger boundaries between planetary systems. That's yet to be seen. There's lots of incentive for faking such things, so it's hard to say whether we will even know with certainty what actually is going on. But anyway, my point is that segregation in that sort of a way has always been practiced, even by Brahma and Krishna himself. So the concept is not inherently evil. It serves a useful function. In Vedic times, there were many different kingdoms, and each kingdom was defended by an army. Individually, people would have a compound wall around their home to protect against thieves and wild animals. It's practical. There's a need for defense because the world is dangerous. So those systems are there. But from another perspective, everyone is Krishna's child. We're all related. We are all entitled to the wealth of the Father, Krishna, and one human being does not have a right to restrict another human being's access to the resources of the Father. But that doesn't mean that I should leave the door of my house open for anyone at all to walk in. We also have a right to defend ourselves against thievery or other types of criminal activity. And that right exists both individually and collectively. So communities may exercise a system of defense, and nations certainly exercise a system of defense. So anyway, little food for thought. I'm not gonna proclaim that one ideology or another is correct necessarily, but those are some things to think about. Anyway, I've gone on a tangent. What I do best. We should stop. It's now it's past 8:20, 8:22. Thanks again, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for your contribution. And yes, Bhagavatam is always getting us to think about different subject matters in a way in which we didn't think of. In other words, it disabuses our preconceptions that we inherit from mainstream society, and to see things from Krishna's perspective. And Krishna today, he says, Sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. So Krishna's perspective is, if we just shut everything down in terms of our plan making factory, everything is going to be all right. So let's do that. See our daily lives through the perspective of Radha Damodar, and in this way, we will be very, very happy. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Pramanande, Haribo.